at work. Been kind of talking about this all day with the release of WWE 2K25 on the horizon here in just a few days. Decided to make my own top 10 video, if you will. I got about 20 minutes to get this done, so we're going to go ahead and just dive kind of right into this. This is my top 10 heel turns in the WWE. Now, this also will include WCW on account that WCW is now the property of WWE. WWE owns that company and whatnot. So before we get into my top 10, I want to express very much this is my opinion. If you don't feel the same as I do, that's perfectly okay. That's the best thing about opinions, guys, is everybody's got their own. You want to voice your own? Make one. Another common question is, what is a heel? A heel is a bad guy. This is going to be a list of my top 10 good guys that turned bad. They went from being fan favorites to what they call heels, which are bad guys. Couple honorable mentions. Didn't quite make the list, but I love these heel turns nonetheless. Not in ascending or descending order whatsoever. One, Andre the Giant turning on Hulk Hogan in 1987. This was, Hogan and Andre were running buddies back in the mid to late 80s. Hogan won a trophy because he was the WWE champion for like 3 years at the time. Andre had been given a trophy as well. His was for being kayfabe undefeated for 15 years, although he did lose at house shows and things like that. But Hogan made his a bigger deal, which then turned into Andre the Giant aligning with Bobby the Brain Heenan. Infamously on Piper's Pit, he challenged him to a title match at WrestleMania 3. The rest on that is history, but I love that heel turn for what it is worth it, or for what it's worth, excuse me. Another honorable mention, Scott Steiner turning on his brother Rick at WCW Super Bowl 8. I love the heel turn with this one. This is, the Steiners were the tag team champions. They defended the titles against the Outsiders at Super Bowl 8. In the months leading up to this event, the writing was on the wall. You could tell Scott Steiner was going to turn heel. It was just a matter of when. In tag team matches, he would never tag out. He'd start the match. He'd go all the way. He'd get the pin. He'd kind of take to his own to celebrate and things like that. And then it came to they did the Steiners would do their infamous pose where Rick would be on all fours, Scott would be above him. He winked at Kevin Nash. He gave the too sweet sign. He hit the double axe handle, turned on his brother, and he joined the New World Order. Again, love the heel turn, but the writing was on the wall with that one. Another honorable mention, Tommaso Ciampa turning on Johnny Gargano when DIY split up at NXT TakeOver Chicago in 2017. DIY had just lost to the Authors of Pain in a ladder match for the NXT Tag Team titles. And as the DIY was going up the ramp, Gargano is kind of, he's looking around. Ciampa's looking around. And then out of nowhere, Ciampa, turns on him, throws him into the LED board, beat the living shit out of him, and left him laying at the end of that show. Another one, my final honorable mention, Dominic Mysterio turning on his father, Rey Mysterio, at Clash of the Castle in 2022. This was another one that you could see coming. A lot of these heel turns you can see coming if you analyze it enough. But in the weeks leading up to Clash of the Castle, Judgment Day was heavy on trying to recruit Dominic Mysterio into the fold, and it all came to a head in a 6-man tag: Edge, Rey Mysterio, and Dominic Mysterio getting the win. And as they're celebrating, Dom, takes Edge to Dick Kick City, kicks him in the balls, drops him. Rey's trying to, stop, trying to stop him from doing it. Dom just blasts his father with a clothesline. Again, great heel turn. It doesn't make my top 10. It would lead up to Rey and Dominic at WrestleMania 39 2 years ago. And now we get into the top 10. And again, strictly my opinion. You don't have to agree with me. Your list can be different, and I'm sure many's are, but we're going to just kind of dive into this. So here we go. Number 10, I have Ric Flair turning on Sting at WCW's Halloween Havoc 1995. This one came about where it was Sting and Flair teaming to take on Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman. At the start of the show, might have even been on the pre-show afterwards. Flair gets jumped by the Horseman in an angle to where you're not sure if he's going to make it out there. You're not sure what's going to happen. Sting goes out by himself, and for about 15 minutes or so, he holds his own. Flair comes running out. He's got a big ass Band-Aid on the side of it on his head. Jumps on the apron. Sting makes the tag, and then when Flair comes in, he starts kind of prancing around, and he just when you think that he is going to accept Sting's tag, Sting does tag him. Flair comes in and just blasts him in the face, and that's how they reform the Four Horsemen. Again, it was just you saw it coming, but you didn't see it coming. That kind of thing. Like I said, Flair, they don't call him the dirtiest player in the game for nothing. Number 9, Matt Hardy turns on his brother Jeff Hardy at the Royal Rumble in 2009. Jeff Hardy had won the WWE Championship, finally, at Armageddon in 2008 at the end of the year. Hardy had been chasing the title all fall long, feuding with Triple H. He won the triple threat match against Triple H and Edge at Armageddon to win the title. And all of a sudden, all these accidents started happening with him as Pyro hit him in the face, and he got run off the road or some stuff like that. And it all came to a crescendo at the Royal Rumble. Matt comes out, acting like he's going to hit Edge, and then he turns and clocks his brother in the head, cost him the WWE Championship. Hardy was the title holder going into that event, and that would set up Matt and Jeff at WrestleMania 25 that year, which is something the Hardys wanted to do. They wanted to have a one-on-one match. So it served its purpose. I just kind of wish Jeff would have had a longer run with the title. But that's just business. But it was shocking nonetheless, because it's something you didn't really expect for its time. Number 8, Eddie Guerrero turns on Rey Mysterio in 2005. This was Eddie and Rey were tag team champions early in 2005. And they even had a friendly match at WrestleMania 21 where Rey would win. And then Eddie would increasingly get upset because he could not beat Rey Mysterio. No matter what. No matter what the match was, he could not get the job done. Until Eddie finally snapped. They had a tag match. I think it's when they actually lost the tag team titles. Eddie would refuse to help Rey. Rey got beat down. It eludes me who they lost the titles to. Feel free to let me know in the comments who they lost the tag team titles to. Might have been the Basham brothers. That might have been a little bit. Irregardless, Eddie beats the living bricks off of him. It leads to a match at Judgment Day in 2005, which Rey won. It led to the secret, the bedtime story that the secret, if you will, about Dominic is not Rey's biological father. It's Eddie. That would come to light after the Great American Bash, despite the fact that Rey would beat Eddie at that event as well. Eddie's like, I lied, and then he blurts it out. It leads to the custody of Dominic ladder match that was just so stupid. The match concept, not the match itself. The match at SummerSlam in 2005 was really, really good. That Rey would win, but Eddie, eventually would get a win against Rey Mysterio, but just the fact of how brutal he turned against him, he busted him open, ripped his mask, ended up doing a suplex on the stairs. And then that was prior to their Judgment Day match. It was announced that Rey was going to return at Judgment Day. Eddie cut that amazing, scathing promo about he doesn't want to hurt. He name dropped Aaliyah, his daughter, and his son Dominic. He said, "Don't make me hurt their papa," and says, if you come back at Judgment Day, I advise against it because I have your blood on my hands, and at Judgment Day I'll have your life. And that was just such a scathing promo, such a great feud in 2005. But again, the fact that Eddie, I actually had to take a picture of my list because I'm recording this on my phone. But again, Eddie, classic Eddie in 2005, and sadly, little do we know, we would lose Eddie just a few short months later in November. But Eddie turning on Mysterio in 2005 is always one of my favorite heel moments. Number 7, the Mega Powers explode in 1989. This one had come about, again, this is another one the writing was on the wall. For months, to go back on this one, Mega Powers formed at the end of WrestleMania 4 when Hulk Hogan helped Randy Savage win the WWE Championship after the title was vacated after the controversial Hulk Hogan Andre the Giant match on the main event in February of 1988. After that, DiBiase was in the finals, had Andre helping him. Elizabeth would go back to get Hulk Hogan, who would help Savage win the title, and they crusaded on this year-long, well, almost year-long, tag team called the Mega Powers. Seeds of dissension were planted as early as SummerSlam in 1988, where Savage, was jealous of Hogan because he thought he lusted after Elizabeth. The dissension would continue into November at Survivor Series. It all would come to a head in February of 1989 during an episode of the main event where the Mega Powers took on the Twin Towers. Savage was thrown to the ropes, took out Elizabeth. Hogan would take Elizabeth back to the nurses' station hospital thing they had backstage. Savage would go back there. They had their big blow off, and Savage finally admitted, that Hogan, you have lust in your eyes for Elizabeth. If you wanted to come after me man on man for the belt, I beat you. And then Hogan turns to Elizabeth and talks some sense in this guy. Savage hits him with the title belt, and then you're off and running. You have Hogan and Savage, the Mega Powers exploding at WrestleMania 5 for the WWE Championship, in which Hogan would win, gag me, with a pitchfork. Hogan would win the title. But again, just the moment that the Mega Powers exploded is always going to resonate in my mind. So that was why it's at number 7. Number 6, Paul Bearer turns on The Undertaker at SummerSlam 1996. First ever Boiler Room Brawl. Undertaker and Mankind. This is something that at the time had never been seen. You never saw how this would kind of play out, if you will. And the object of the match is you'd start out in the boiler room, and then you'd work your way to the ring where Paul Bearer was with the urn. You take the urn from Paul Bearer, you win the match. Well, throughout this whole thing, Mankind Undertaker had one hell of a feud in 1996. Mankind would beat The Undertaker clean at the King of the Ring in 1996, giving Undertaker a very shocking clean-cut loss at King of the Ring, to which these two would feud, again, all throughout 1996. The match at SummerSlam was brutal. They come out to the Mankind took that really sick bump where they're on the apron. Undertaker, launches him backwards with the ropes, and he cracks the back of his head on the concrete floor. Taker goes in to get the urn. Bear shuns him, and then he ultimately ends up hitting him in the head with the urn, giving it to Mankind, ending their at the time, 5-year partnership. They'd been together since early '91. And then Paul Bearer aligned with Mankind. And again, just a heel turn you just didn't see coming. You didn't think that Paul Bearer would turn on The Undertaker, even though he would do it, in 2010 as well. But be that as it may, Undertaker got duped in that, and then that was the end of that. But like I said, just the image of Paul Bearer hitting The Undertaker with the urn is something that will live with me. I've been following wrestling over 30 years, and it's just one of my favorite heel turns. Number 5, Triple H turns on Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam 2013. Again, writing was on the wall that we were going to have a new WWE champion in Daniel Bryan. John Cena had a wicked knot on his elbow. He had to have it drained, and I think he had to have surgery on his elbow. So whoever he hand chose, which is what the gimmick was that John Cena was going to hand choose his opponent for SummerSlam that year. And he went with the crowd's advice, and he chose John Cena. And then for whatever reason, Triple H inserted himself as the referee, which I thought that was really kind of odd. And even going into that match, I thought it was extremely odd. But Daniel Bryan would win the title clean, which, everybody knew Cena was taking time off to deal with his elbow injury. Daniel Bryan would hit the running knees, pin him 1, 2, 3. And as Daniel Bryan is celebrating, Triple H is hanging out in the ring, which, again, was a sign. It was a tell. All of a sudden, Randy Orton's music hits. Randy had won the Money in the Bank match earlier that year, and Randy teased the cash-in. And then at this point, Bryan's focused on Randy Orton in the aisleway. Triple H at this point positions himself behind Daniel Bryan, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the heel turn right here. And sure enough, he spins Daniel Bryan around, he kicks him in the gut, hits a pedigree. Orton turns back around, walks into the ring, or slides under the bottom rope, hands the contract to Triple H and says, I'm cashing this in. Triple H rings the bell. Just as quick as it starts, Randy Orton makes the cover. 1, 2, 3. Randy Orton, the hand-chosen WWE champion of what started the Authority angle, started at SummerSlam 2013. Although you can see it coming, it's still one of my favorite heel turns. Daniel Bryan would ultimately have his moment at WrestleMania 30 in 2014. But I love the heel turn. Triple H starting the Authority angle there. And these next 4, you could literally put these in any order because they're all monumental in their own right. Number 4, I have the Rockers Implode in 1992. Shawn Michaels was going to be the megastar. He throughout the late part of 1991, there was dissension within the Rockers. They were involved in an elimination match at the Survivor Series in 1991, where I believe it was the Rockers and the Bushwhackers against the Beverly Brothers and the Nasty Boys. And there got to a point where Jannetty would pick up one of the Nasty Boys, and his foot would catch Michaels in the face, causing him to be eliminated. Obviously, Shawn getting pinned. Sorry, you're making a page. Sorry, so Shawn visibly upset, obviously pissed off at Marty. They had a segment on the Barbershop, which was Brutus the Barber Beefcake's little talk show thing that he always did, and he talked about how, what's the deal with the Rockers? Are you guys staying together? Are you guys breaking up? Marty was like, listen, I'm sorry. Let's keep doing our thing. Shawn initially agrees to it. They shake hands, they hug, they're posing. Brutus is like, the Rockers, and he walks off set. Out of nowhere, Shawn hits him with a super kick. And then he takes Jannetty and he throws him through the plate glass barbershop window, which was actually made out of candy glass. Bobby Heenan, God rest his soul, one of the funniest quips when he throws Jannetty through the window. He calls Marty Jannetty a coward, and he's trying to get away from Shawn. He threw himself through the window trying to escape. I miss Bobby Heenan, I truly do. But that skyrocketed Shawn Michaels to superstardom. That was the start of a singles run. He would win the Intercontinental Championship later in 1992 from the British Bulldog. And it was just that moment. Had that moment not happened, we may not have seen Shawn Michaels reach the heights that he got to. So that was iconic. The Rockers imploding it in 1982 is my number 4. Number 3, Seth Rollins turns on the Shield in 2014. This would have been the night after Payback in 2014. Evolution had lost to the Shield in a 6-man elimination match the night before Payback. Evolution's outside. They're walking toward the ring. The Shield's in the ring. Triple H admits, "Hey, you guys, you got the best of us." Triple H kept repeating, "There's always a plan B." And at this point, Seth Rollins takes a couple steps back with a steel chair in hand, whacks Roman Reigns in the back. Dean Ambrose looks on, horrified at what his brother in arms did. Seth Rollins would stab the Shield in the back and break the Shield up, essentially. Rollins would then become the cornerstone of the Authority stable that was established in 2013. Rollins would then go on to cash in the money, or he'd go on to win the Money in the Bank briefcase later that month, and he would hold on to that briefcase until WrestleMania 31 when he obtained the heist of the century. Which, if you want to see my thoughts on that, go to my Do You Remember episode. I'm not sure what number it is, but it's the heist of the century. I go into detail about that whole mix on what Seth did with that. So, but again, Seth Rollins, that was the launch of Seth Rollins, is when he turned on the Shield. Didn't see it coming. You knew the Shield at some point were going to break up, but not in that mannerism. Yo, we got Matt and Big Baby in the chat. What's up, guys? Almost done. We got 2 more. Number 2. John Cena joins The Rock at the Elimination Chamber 2025. You can argue that this one and the number one entry that on my list, you can put them in either order. Me being an old school wrestling fan, hang on. All right. You can put the old school wrestling fans are going to put the number one, are going to put John Cena turning an Elimination Chamber as number one because they weren't watching wrestling back in the number one entry, which if you're an old school wrestling fan, you guys know what number one's going to be. But I'm not going to go into too much detail with this just because if you want to know my thoughts on John Cena's heel turn, check out the video, John Cena Turns Heel Elimination Chamber 2025. I go into explicit detail, my thoughts on it. I thought it was fantastic. It's not number one, though. My number one entry, greatest heel turn in WWE history, is none other than Hulk Hogan forms the NWO with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash at Bash at the Beach 1996. I remember I watched Bash at the Beach live. In 1996, the Hostile Takeover match, Sting, Lex Luger, and the Macho Man Randy Savage against Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and a mystery partner. What made this match is when Hogan came out, everybody thought he was going to side with the babyface side, with Sting and Savage. Luger got taken out earlier in the match, and so essentially WCW was down a member because the third man didn't appear to the end of the match. Savage was in control of Kevin Nash. Nash hit a low blow, which out came Hulk Hogan, which the crowd popped for pretty significantly. Hogan comes out in his normal red and yellow attire. Dusty Rhodes and Tony Schiavone are going nuts because they're like, oh, here comes Hulk Hogan. And he goes into the ring, and again, the one thing that soured this a little bit was Bobby Heenan, yelling, well, whose side is he on? Everybody knew that Bobby Heenan hated Hulk Hogan. He hated him with a passion. So you can understand Heenan trying to put seeds of doubt into people as to, is Hogan, really gonna, join up with Hall and Nash. But just for a split second, you have that minuscule of doubt. Is Hogan really gonna do this? Is he really gonna turn? And sure enough, Hall and Nash flee the ring. Hogan rips his shirt off. He pushes the referee and he drops the leg drop on prone Randy Savage, who's laying in the middle of the ring. He would end up dropping two more leg drops. He would slap fives with Hall and Nash. He'd cover Savage. The match ended in a no contest. Obviously, the match was thrown out. They don't count it as an actual pin, that sort of thing. The match was thrown out, and then the most memorable thing about it is Gene Okerlund comes in the ring to interview him, ask him why. Fans are throwing garbage. They're throwing beer. They're throwing soda pop. They're throwing popcorn. They are littering the ring with debris and garbage. They're throwing it at Hogan. They're throwing it at Hall. They're throwing it at Nash. I personally, at the time, I'd never seen anything like that in my life. The biggest babyface in professional wrestling. A lot of people don't know Hulk Hogan was a heel in the late 70s, early 80s. Before he came to WWE, he was a heel. When he came to WWE, that's when, the whole Hulkamania thing started. When he won the title in 1984, that was the birth of Hulkamania. So a lot of people knew Hulk Hogan as a babyface. I was born in the early 80s, so that's all I knew is Hulk Hogan as a babyface. I never knew heel Hulk Hogan. And I think that's why a lot of people would put, John Cena turning heel at the Elimination Chamber ahead of this because they didn't live through 1996 when they started watching wrestling after 1996. But for me personally, that's why I have to put Hogan's heel turn. He kind of took some jabs at WWE talking about, he made that organization a monster, that it was. He didn't name drop anything, but again, Hall and Nash were depicted as defectors from WWF because they knew him as Razor Ramon and Diesel, now using their real names. But yeah, and that's why Hulk Hogan turning heel at Bash of the Beach 96 will forever be my number one heel turn. So you guys have to let me know in the comments what you guys think. I got to get off here finish up the night. I will try to get a video up tonight when I get home. If not, I'm going to get another Dragon Quest XI episode up for you guys tomorrow, along with some other stuff. Baby says, I can't recall Sting ever turning heel. Sting turned heel actually at Fall Brawl in 1999. Oddly enough, against Hulk Hogan. He won the belt from Hogan by turning heel. Which, you know, there's a lot. I have a series called Do You Remember? Wrestling's most infamous moments. That actually might be a video I do, is Sting turning heel on Hogan. Because they dropped the ball with Sting's heel turn immensely. But, like I said, let me know you guys' favorite heel turn moments. If there's something I missed, hey, I might have. But like I said, the beauty of this video is that this is my opinion. Like I said, yours could be different, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. Give this video a thumbs up if you would as well. It does help the channel grow. That being said, take care, guys, and I will catch you guys in the next video.